And here it is, the tabletop sports arena in its completed state. As you can see, I have a whole mix and match Hot Wheels layout set up on top of this play table. Completed in only a few days of my spare time, this play table affords me many different possibilities. So one of the first things I did was I purchased a supercharger race set in pretty good shape. I've got all the original pieces with it, track, lap counters, curves, and I set up as a test. Both superchargers work. There's one there which needs a little oil or maybe some work on the contacts, but it works. And this one here, which works quite well, they're the single story supercharger. And I've added on this side of the table, or this side of the track, I've added a 1998 Circa power booster. The track is a mix of different sets, all from the 90s and early 2000s. This orange track is really a 1990s, early 2000s vintage. And I've got all the cars that my two sons collected, Hot Wheels and a few Johnny Lightnings, as well as some of my original vintage Redlines thrown in the mix. And I set this very simple loop up here with just a mix of curves from different sets. I like these high-walled bank curves, which are actually working better. I tested out some of the old curves, which seem to slow the cars down a lot. I don't know if the banking is different or if they might just be dirty and need to be cleaned up. But I got the set, I got the original instructions, I've got the decals that were never put on the supercharger, which is like, these are supposed to be like garages or something that the cars drive through, and the decals are like people eating in a cafe. And they've never been put on, so what I'm gonna do is rather than put them on, I'm going to make color scans of them on a cardstock and just lightly adhere them to the surfaces. I have yet to do that little project yet, but it's really cool that I've got the original decals never been put on and the instructions and everything. So I set this thing up, and of course you have to dial them in a little bit. These hadn't been running a long time. I noticed the longer I had them running, the more smoother they ran. They make a lot of noise, but I think they always made a lot of noise. The boosters always made a lot of noise. So on this layout, I did 1 and 1 and dialed them in until I got to the point where most of the cars would run on them. Some of them wouldn't. Like this is the pile, some of the cars that wouldn't run properly on them. I think either they're too narrow to really get a good boost off the spinning wheels of the supercharger and power booster, or they're just way out of alignment, so they like to flip off the track, what have you. But I'm constantly adding more cars. These are the cars in the center that I know work. Surprisingly, my peeping bomb here, it still does quite well. I haven't raced this car since 1972. So we'll set them all up here. The other thing I had in the same track, the same layout with that booster, is I also bought a vintage rod runner. And this is what I had as a kid. I never had a supercharger as a kid. I don't know, and I don't know why, but I just never did. Maybe they were really expensive and I wanted to save the Christmas dough for other things, but I wasn't even aware of these really big supercharger sets when I was a kid, and I don't know why. I usually set up layouts that were either the drag set, where the cars see which cars were the fastest, which is the first set I got when I was a kid, or I set up long courses to see which cars could go the furthest through curves and straightaways and such, is usually the setup that I did. The rod runner was sold individually like this one was, or in sets, and this is kind of how I got mine. I got it as an add-on. And again, Mattel and their box art. Is there anything more beautiful than a 55 Nomad blasting out, doing a wheelie out of the rod runner? I mean, it just, God, that art is just so cool. And it's on everything. I mean, look at this. that box art is just great. And thankfully on this one that I just got, the supercharger said it's in good shape. But anyway, the rod runner I really liked because it was completely mechanical. And what you did was you pushed the shifter down, the cars went in the back, ejected out, and I'll show a demonstration of this, ejected out at high speed, and it really worked good. When you're on a loop like this, okay, you got to remember to keep shifting it down or your cars are going to whap into the top of the, or the bottom of the shifter and not go anywhere. The weird thing is the box shows a layout here where the kid would have a rod runner and a loop like this, kind of a NASCAR circuit, right? And I could never get that to work as a kid. Either I would turn up the speed control, which basically just puts tension on the rubber band inside there. I'd turn that up, which would result in the cars going through the curve too fast and going off the road. Or if I turned it down, they would never have enough energy to get all the way around and trigger off the rod runner again. And I played with it all over the place, moving it forward, backwards, less track, more track. I could never get it to work. So instead, I just set it up on one of my endurance runs as a booster to keep the cars going, and played with it that way. But this way is really fun. When you get it working on a loop and you keep shifting it, it's really a lot of fun. And you feel real macho shifting it. The rod running! Hand shift, power booster. This is when toys were really cool. Although they make a lot of cool Hot Wheels stuff now, but mostly it's sets that are in and of themselves. They involve crashing and beating up the cars and stuff like that. I don't really like that. A good crash is cool every once in a while. Just smacking the cars into each other isn't exactly great. So let's get some of this stuff up and rolling and see what it looks like. Okay, so what I do is turn this one on to about somewhere between 3/4 and 7/8 power. It's loud. Put this one up all the way. So what we've done now is replace the first supercharger with the rod runner, left the other power booster where it was, and we'll show you how this works. You know, a lot of other cars that we have here that we've collected over the years, I've got them separated here. And as you can see, this table will probably accommodate the massive Hot Wheels Grand Prix set, which is what I'm looking for next, which is really huge. It uses 2 double-decker superchargers and a bunch of curbs and stuff like that. Also, this set, as well as the Grand Prix set, come with these cool little lap counters too, which I really don't use, but they're cool to have. I hope you enjoyed this potpourri of different Hot Wheels sets, mix and match, eras. I got some Redlines in there, some 90s cars in there, different types of superchargers and power boosters. This is a couple more power boosters that I have. All but one work. I've got like 5 or 6 of them, and the one that doesn't work, I think it's just a contact issue or something frozen on it. I'll take it apart and fix it. These actually, I think you can, they're thankfully, Phillips screws hold them together. You can take them apart and work on them a little bit. Unfortunately, the old superchargers are all glued together. I know there's some guys, I've seen some YouTube videos where guys take those apart and fix them, which I think I'd only do if they were completely failed. I think if I could just eke out basic usage of them, I'll go with that for a while. So I hope you enjoyed this latest video. The supercharger race set from Mattel. I think it was like 1969. With Joey!